Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on technology for enabling data-driven decision-making in LDCs. Today, we're going to talk about the case of Ghana, Rwanda, and Congo-Brazzaville. Before we start the session, I'm just going to give you a few logistic notes about how this session is going to work out today. So first, we have several presentations from the panelists that my colleague Paloma will introduce in a few minutes. Please use the chat if you have any question and mention the name of the panelist. Second, we will share all the presentation and recording to everyone who registered after the webinar. And finally, the session will last for about 1 hour and will be exclusively in English this time. So now, Paloma will do the moderation today. So Paloma is Senior Remittance Policy Specialist for our program, the Migrant Money Program from UNCDF. So yeah, Paloma, they're all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Hello, everyone. Many thanks for joining us at the United Nations Capital Development Fund series of webinars, Better Remittances Data for Better Decisions. Particularly in this occasion, we will present how technology enables data-driven decision-making in least developed countries. I'm so pleased for having you here, for more than 100 participants, for more than 35 central banks and authorities. Welcome. Today, I have also the pleasure of being here with representatives of technology solutions, backing authorities in designing, implementing, and using systems to collect data, including remittances data. They will share their experience in Ghana, Rwanda, and Congo-Brazzaville. Let me introduce them. So we have here Edouard Docteur, Chief Delivery Officer from Global Voice Group, Joan Horgan, Director of Product Management, Subtech, and Derek Sevling, Senior Pre-Sales Subtech Business Development, both from technology, and Sukhirat Singh Kochhar, Executive Director and Chief Revenue Officer from Sunoida Solutions. Welcome, Edouard, Joan, Derek, and Sukhirat.
Thank you for having us here.
So I will walk you now. Let me now walk you through the agenda we will cover in the next hour. As a brief introduction, allow me to share that over the past 2 years, UNCDF has been consulting with more than 150 experts in central banks, in national statistical offices, and make technology solution providers to understand where things are and are headed in the remittances digital ecosystem and data collection, and what it will mean for central bank in the least developed countries, our UNCDF main clients. As a result, UNCDF has developed tools, guides, research, and exchange events like this today. Later on, after the presentation of my panelists, I will share some of these tools for your benefit. But let me share also that understanding digital remittances markets requires more than measuring access to finance and remittances aggregated volumes. It will also require an assessment of the quality and use of the remittances services and key positive impacts of these remittances flows on sustainable development outcomes, like inclusive economic growth, financial resilience, financial integrity, or gender equity. So one way to strengthen the policies and processes that facilitate understanding remittances markets is to leverage technology to drive efficiency and sustainability, reducing costs and improving overall efficiency in capturing, monitoring, analyzing granular remittances data to inform policy making, but also private sector investment and product development. So today, Joan and Dara will present the importance of granular data and the system that has been designed and implemented together with the Bank of Ghana that capture data on remittances and also allows to identify if those remittances are credited to a digital wallet or a bank account, as well as the sex of the receiving account owner. Then Sukhirat will share some key challenges for reporting entities and regulators and the journey accompanied the National Bank of Rwanda in designing, implementing, and running a subtech system that allows the central bank access to granular sex disaggregated data, but also analysis and use of that data for policy making through detailed dashboards. Eduard will also share his success stories supporting regulators in Congo, Brazil, in developing the digital ecosystem, analyzing and using mobile money data. And finally, we will open the Q&A for you, for the benefit of the audience. So please be sure to put your questions in the chat. So without further ado, I will give the floor to John and Derek. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paloma, and thank you very much, everybody, for giving up your time to attend the webinar today. So we're going to be speaking about the Bank of Ghana use case that we have, and Joanne will be talking about that later on. But initially, I just want to do some scene setting, I suppose, telling you about Regnology as a company, who we are, what we do, our solutions, and some of the problems that we help supervisors with across the globe. So Paloma, would you mind moving on to the next slide there, please? So thank you very much. So Regnology has been serving financial institutions for over 30 years with our customer base, including regulated entities such as banks, insurance companies, and other financial houses. But we also provide technology to supervisory agencies as well, such as central banks and tax authorities. And you'll see on the map here, we have some numbers, but also highlighting the global footprint that we have with over 1,100 staff based in offices across the globe, from London to Frankfurt to Paris, Singapore, and more recently, the USA as well. And in total, we have over 7,000 firms reporting with our RegTech products, and we serve over 70 regulators across the globe, with these ranging from developed to developing economies. And if you look at our African customer base in particular, regulators in Angola, Botswana, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Namibia, South Africa, and Ghana, which Joanne will talk about later, are using our SubTech platform. And in total, we have 34,000 firms across the globe interacting with our software in some way, shape, or form. Move on to the next slide, Paloma. So, oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. So at Regnology, we're in the unique position of serving both the regulators and the regulated. And this enables us to understand what regulators need while also understanding the burden and challenges faced by the industry, so we can improve our solutions to cater the needs of both sides of the market. And our vision is to connect regulators and regulated entities through better sharing of workflows, data, and communication channels. And we want to better unite these feedback loops, reporting obligations, and data flows through our SubTech and RegTech platforms. And this concept is called our first mile, last mile approach. And there are several benefits to this approach for both the regulator and regulated entities. So all of our reporting obligations can be shared in a machine-readable way from the supervisor's platform and consumed by regulated entities. So we're doing away with all of the paper and email submissions as well. Communication loops are stored and audited centrally, so removing the need for disconnected ad hoc email and communication. But probably most importantly is the reduced total cost of ownership for both financial entities and supervisors through platform synergies. So that's shared data model, components, and services as well. Move on to the next slide, Paloma. So we believe with our solution, we're delivering a 360-degree view of regulated entities, and you can divide our solution into 4 different modular areas. So licensing and approvals, data collections, risk-based supervision, and then the last bit, which is statistics and insights. So through our software, we enable regulators to be able to approve licensing requests from new market entrants, where they can build up their corporate profile on our platform, which is viewable from both the regulated entity side and the financial supervisor side. And then from there, regulators can start to configure their data collections, their validation rules, and start to configure the report scheduling for the entities that they're regulating. And then once that data is collected, we start to build up a risk profile of these institutions, and regulators can calculate the KRIs associated with the data that's being collected, which can then further lead to assessment or on-site examination if needs be. And then the last bit is the statistical output as well. So within our platform, you can also drive research and policy through our SDMX standard as well. Next slide, please, Paloma. So this is just a very quick survey here where the BIS published a paper a couple of years ago talking about the 4 different generations of SubTech. So first generation, or 1G, is more manual data submission, so emails and fax, lots of static reports and descriptive analytics. And then you start to move towards 2G, which is more bulk loading of data, descriptive and diagnostic analytics, big data warehouses and standalone databases. And then 4G is the automation of real-time, or as close to real-time data collection, predictive and prescriptive analytics, and large data lakes with cloud computing as well. So at Regnology, through our engagements with customers and sessions like this, we regularly compile and run surveys to try and gain insights and subtech trends within the industry. So interesting, what you can see here is that EU supervisors are still mostly on the second generation of subtech, with some more advanced areas of data products and visualization. Whereas in the same survey of central banks of Southeast Asia, the majority are still predominantly on that first generation, but starting to move towards that second generation as well. Next slide, please. Hello. Thank you very much. So the problem thing we want to talk about here now is granular data. So the role of regulators is to efficiently regulate licensed financial entities within their jurisdictions. We see regulators want clean and real-time data to drive better insights when it comes to driving policy and decision-making, but also when it comes to the identification of systemic risk within the wider financial system. And to achieve this, we're seeing more and more regulators wanting to move away from the traditional template-based data collections and more towards the granular data approach. And you'll see here that there's a comment from the Deputy Chair of APRA, Helen Rowell, and she says, collecting more granular and consistent data that better enables data-driven decision-making will lower the burden on the industry by making data submission more efficient, reducing duplication and the need for ad hoc data requests. Can move on to the next slide there. Oh, thank you very much. So these are just some benefits and challenges of granular data reporting, both for the regulated entities and for the regulators. And starting with the main benefits, we're reducing the burden and costs on local financial institutions to interpret complex regulations and taxonomies. But also, as well, with more granular data, entities can avoid resubmission of invalid or wrong data that they're reporting on a granular record level as well. But for licensed financial entities, granular data doesn't always, doesn't come without its challenges as well. So, for example, some of the granular data requirements might not be there, or the data might not exist for licensed financial entities. So this can involve big IT infrastructure in order to get that side of the business up to speed. For regulators, I've already talked a little bit about the benefits of granular data, but just two other points as well. Just one being the ability to automate data collections as much as possible. So some institutions are pulling granular data from core banking systems via API on a daily basis. And then also as well, with more granular data, supervisors can gain more accurate insights into financial markets, and they can further disseminate and share this data with other third parties. But then maybe some challenges for regulators could be to do with, I suppose, the storage of big data. So you're pulling more and more granular data. Can your systems keep up with pulling all this data on a regular basis and storing all of this granular data? And then, of course, as well, there could be some privacy issues with regards to the type of granular data that you want to collect in local jurisdictions, and there could be laws around that as well. So I'll pass over to Joanne now, who's going to talk you through our Bank of Ghana case study.
Thanks, Dara. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the project that Regnology undertook at Bank of Ghana. And as many of you might know, Ghana suffered a pretty severe financial crisis in its indigenous banking sector between about 2017 and 2020, which led to the consolidation of several of those banks. And this was caused due to a significant buildup of vulnerabilities in the banking sector across credit risk, non-performing loans, and some issues around corporate governance. Through that period, the Bank of Ghana undertook a significant reform of the sector and monetary policy, as well as an overhaul of its use of data and technology for more effective supervision. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. If you want to go on to the next slide, please, Paloma. So the objectives, I won't read through all of them here, but the objectives of the project to put in place a new surveillance software solution were really around improving the flow of data, getting better quality data, and making sure that actionable insights were able to be extracted from more extensive volumes of business transactions and remittance data, etc. So next slide, please. So in 2019, Regnology was selected by the Bank of Ghana to provide a fully integrated financial surveillance system. And the system, which is called the Online Regulatory and Analytical Surveillance Software, provides a centralised portal to collect both prudential data from banks and other deposit-taking institutions, as well as managing the licensing and authorisation of supervised entities. And compared to the previous approach that was used for data collection and analysis, the ORAS system is able to provide a much more comprehensive data set that captures transactional data from other financial services beyond just payments data as well. So some of the highlights, I guess, of the solution, it offers a single data collection portal, but different channels and formats for different types of data. And that's something that we find is quite important across all the regulators that we work with. That ability to collect any data at any time, whether that's via API and via sort of push or pull of data in machine readable formats. But for some types of data and maybe some sectors of your regulated industry, data upload or manual data entry may still be required as well. So it's important to have that one channel where data can be provided, whether it's in granular or more template-based formats. The portal also provides data at any frequency, so it's collecting daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual data, as well as ad hoc data. And it has quite, dimensional or quite sort of granular data models being collected from the industry. So in the banking sector, for example, all loans, deposits, borrowings and investments are collected from every bank via API. And then one of the most important parts is the analysis and the insights that are run on that data. So dashboards and analytics are provided on the prudential statistical reports, as well as on the granular data. And I'll speak a little bit later about what types of insights have been able to be achieved by that. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to share the kind of resulting dashboards and analytics today that are being run on the collected data, but I just wanted to highlight another important point is that this same subtech platform is used to unify the licensing databases and the licensing of and authorization of entities with the prudential reporting database. And that allows the bank to have a single platform where they have a more comprehensive view and 360-degree view of their licensed institutions. And you can see here, for example, this is just an example of the registration form, that all types of entities, from banks to microfinance companies, fintechs, leasing companies, are all using the same platform, and it's configured in such a way that, as I mentioned, all different types of data can be collected from the industry. Next slide, please. So some of the benefits of taking this approach of unifying the portal that's used by the industry and having an internal analytics center that the central bank can use. This solution allows financial institutions to easily integrate their own reporting applications with the central bank system. So as Dara mentioned earlier, we do work with both with banks in some jurisdictions and regulators. And we're very keen to provide APIs, and which are application programming interfaces and more machine readable approaches, so that banks and all types of financial institutions can integrate their own system very easily with the central bank. And this allows a much more automated way of providing data, much more automated way of providing feedback as well on that data, on the quality of that data, and also allows scalability. So, with the digital platform, when large amounts of data are involved, using those sort of, as Dara mentioned, those kind of 1 or 2G approaches of uploading files or uploading Excels or emailing in data is just, it's no longer feasible. So having APIs and having machine readable data models allows data exchange formats that address those limitations that might be used in previous systems. The other benefit that the Bank of Ghana have achieved is improved workflow efficiency. So again, with a lot of the automation of the data flow between the financial institutions and the central bank, the number of tasks involved in preparing and submitting reports is much reduced for the industry. And similarly, the data coming in is validated at the point of collection. So it's validated by the system, meaning that it's immediately available for analytics. And this in turn then leads to lower costs for both the reporting institutions and also for the central bank once it's able to get data in a much faster and much more a much higher quality of data coming into the system as well. Next slide, please. And I think one of the important outcomes of the project was that the Bank of Ghana, they're able to obtain, as I mentioned, very granular data. So they are collecting data, for example, on loan applications. And from this, they can see they're able to gain insights beyond just sort of prudential supervision. There's insights that can be gained from this data that help with financial inclusion policy, for example. So in the loan application data, they can see the split between men and women who are granted or denied loans. And, an interesting insight was that the analysis showed that compared to men, women accounted for a much smaller share of total loan applicants and generally asked for smaller loan amounts. And yet the percentage of women denied loans was significantly higher. The ORAS system also captures data on inbound remittances and identifies the type of accounts that the transfer is made to, so, an e-wallet or bank account, as well as the gender of the receiving account owner. And this trend uncovered in the data is that very few women use e-wallets or other digital financial services for remittance. And these two instances sort of demonstrate the power of using that comprehensive, granular and sex disaggregated data to identify problematic areas that might be causing gender exclusion in finance. So the type of insights that the Bank of Ghana are able to see and to be able to observe in the data, in the trends in the data, will allow them to understand the root causes of the problems, which can then inform and improve policy formulation and help to address those, maybe that gender gap in access to financial services. So I think this is just it's an example of, when you move to collecting more granular data, the insights that you get can go beyond maybe even the original intention of collecting that data and can very much allow central banks to improve some of their policy decisions for the future. So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions if people want to put them in the chat. Thanks, Paloma.
Thank you so much, Joanne and Drag. So now I will pass the floor to Sukhirat. So Sukhirat, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Paloma. My name is Sukhirat. I'm the Executive Director and Chief Revenue Officer for Sonoida, based in Dubai. So I'll start with a quick company introduction, Paloma, if you can move to the next slide. So Sonoida is headquartered in Dubai with strong presence across emerging markets. We have built a number of solutions for the financial sector, including our Vision under the Vision branding. So we have Vision Subtech, we have Vision RegTech, and a number of other products for revenue assurance, BI, etc., for the banking and financial services sector. We have over 40 plus successful case studies across banks and regulators across 15 different countries. Paloma, if you can move to the next slide, please. These are some of our key clients across the financial services industry. And we work with both regulators and commercial banks, which helps us a lot in understanding the challenges on both sides, and then kind of integrating them together and making them work together for the data exchange and other regulatory reporting issues which they face. So from a regulator's standpoint, these are some of the key functions. I'm sure most regulators and people on this webinar coming from the regulator side, I believe, most of them. These are across countries, some of the most common functions each regulator has to play in their country. And this has been there for ages. But the key difference now and the key point to note here is that if you think of a country and if you now relate the value and power of data available to fulfill these functions, it makes their job a lot simpler if they have granular, real-time, accurate data available. And then being able to carry out all these functions becomes a lot more efficient and proactive for the regulators. So that's really where we come in and we try to play a role, helping regulators using our Subtech solution. So across different regulated entities and regulator, some of the most common challenges we have seen in the area of prudential reporting and central bank reporting. Let's look at it from the regulated entity standpoint. Today in every bank, if you're collecting data in a template-based manner, the traditional approach, there's heavy resource requirements on the bank side, because they have to, in the good old days, these reports used to go on a quarterly or monthly basis. Now, most of these reports, some of the reports are daily. So you can imagine if you have semi-automation or manual way of preparing these reports, it's a lot of burden on the commercial banks and the financial services industry to prepare these reports and keep complying. There's a high cost to it, and the information is normally submitted post the reporting period. So there's a time lag between when the transactions happen and when the data is submitted. The cost of reporting any incorrect positions and numbers is very high. So that can cause issues as far as compliance is concerned. Paloma, is my screen, are the slides there, or am I not seeing them?
You're talking about the key challenges, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are in the.
Okay. So that's those challenges really affect the regulated entities in terms of being able to submit their information on time. But now, if you look at it from the regulator's standpoint, the issues they have, and when they collect all of this data, the first issue in the template-based approach is that you don't get the granular data. So you get a summary level data at an aggregated level. So you're not able to really get the insights you're looking for using this data. Then secondly, there's lack of validations or data quality controls, which are possible using the traditional approach. So as a result of that, if you ask any regulator in the traditional approach, there are a whole lot of data quality issues. So you collect a lot of data as a regulator, but there's very little use of that data, or you require a lot of manual effort to clean up that data and then use it for your statistics and analytics. There's also the case of incorrect reporting of the positions by some stakeholders, which happens in case of the manual approach, because they know they're reporting the numbers via Excel. So it's very difficult for the regulator to backtrack and check these numbers. So it kind of makes it easier for them to misreport a number because they know what thresholds the regulator is looking for. And at the regulator side, a lot of time is required to collect and use this data. And also, you can't take any proactive steps to do a health check on the status of the entities, regulated entities, or to look at the overall economy. So what we are trying to do, or what we help to do regulators with, is to take them away from a reactive supervision approach to a proactive supervision approach, where we combine all their external stakeholder data with their internal data. We look at help them with their liquidity management across the countries, NPA management, the licensing and authorization, risk-based supervision, and very importantly, the financial inclusion insights, including the entire demographic regional data, and essentially enabling the regulators to have a daily unified real-time view of the entire country's financial sector. Next slide, please. So the case study I'm going to talk about is the project we did for the National Bank of Rwanda. So this was a World Bank funded project. During this project, we have connected over 650 financial institutions in Rwanda to the data warehouse using our vision solution. So all banks in Rwanda now, as a result of this project, they don't prepare any central bank reports, because the Central Bank of Rwanda is able to pull the data directly from all banks through their systems without the need for any manual reporting. So that has freed up a whole lot of resources at every bank, because they don't need to prepare any reports, and via APIs, this data is being collected in a pull-based approach. As a result, BNR now gets a daily position of the entire country's financial position without any manual work on their side or the regulated entity side. And for all the remittance transactions, they get near real-time data. So when any mobile money transfers, or any money transfers from any Forex companies they happen, the central bank gets a real-time notification on all that, on all those transactions on a near real-time basis, and a granular data comes in as part of that data transfer. There are over 100 financial inclusion data points, which also are helping BNR to achieve the country's aggressive financial inclusion goals and reduce the gender gap. And this data is gender disaggregated. They get both financial and demographic data. So Rwanda today is at almost 93% as far as financial inclusion is concerned. They were at 77% 4 years back. So they've made a great improvement in their financial inclusion numbers, and their target is to achieve 100% in the next few years. So this project has been highly successful and has been featured in many global subtech reports, and we can happily share these reports with you whenever you need them. Next slide, please, Paloma. So this is the architecture of our platform. Because of the limited time, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but essentially it's from using the automated data flow, the pull-based approach. We are able to pull the data from all the banks and mature institutions. And for the others, we use a combination of XBRL data uploads in Excel for small Forex operators, etc. The pull-based approach is not possible. So we are using other methods for them to submit their data. Next slide, please. Yeah, so essentially in Rwanda, like I mentioned, there are 650 plus institutions reporting to the central bank. This includes not only banks, but also insurance companies, microfinance institutions, Forex operators, telecoms, mobile money operators. So we are collecting data from all of them on a daily basis, for some of them on a real-time basis, to be able to consolidate that data, combine it with the internal data at the central bank, and then be able to apply all the data quality checks and give it to them for their analytical purposes and machine learning and AI. And they're doing a whole lot of things in that area as well. Next slide, please. So the vision solution has 5 key pillars as part of the solution. So we have the data sourcing, the APIs and the data sourcing. We have the data quality layer. The third one is the data warehouse itself. The business rules engine is the 4th pillar. And the last one is the visualization and reporting, using which they get all their analytics, etc. So it's an end-to-end solution which helps them with all of these things. Yes. Next slide, please. That's fine. Thanks, Paloma. So as far as the remittance data is concerned, specifically focusing on that. So in Rwanda today, the central bank, as a result of this project, like I was mentioning, for all the mobile money transfers, they get real-time data. So you have full visibility on any remittance transaction which happens in that country, because remittance data is very, very critical for the central bank there. And so they get 360-degree analytics. It's granular data. So they get for every transaction, all the details, not only the sender and recipient details, but the purpose of transfer, the frequency of transfers, the channel of transfers, the demographic details related to it. And they have a special focus on the financial inclusion data. So there are over 100 financial inclusion data points, which were included as part of the standardization data layer. And that data is, giving them loan application data, regional data, which region the loan applications are happening, how many people are transferring money via bank account or mobile wallets. So they have full information related to that. Next slide, please. So these are actually some of the live dashboards which the Central Bank of Rwanda monitors to track the flow of their remittance transactions. And there are many such dashboards available to them on a daily basis. Not only this, but Paloma, if you go to the next slide. As a result of this project and the focus on granular data, in fact, the entire country's data quality in Rwanda has gone up drastically. And if you see even the statistics from 57% in 2020, it's gone up to 73% now, which is quite high comparing to the average in the sub-Saharan Africa. So comparing urban, this is financial inclusion data. So if you look at it from rural-urban divide, if you look at gender-wise, if you want to see age distribution of the customers, the profession of the customers, which banking products are they using the most, customers who have mobile money accounts versus bank accounts, and a whole lot of combination related to remittance data as well. This is the value and the power of the analytics which happen when you're able to use subtech in a really useful and cohesive manner, combined with the leadership and the policy making which is required to execute some of these things. Next slide, please. So my last slide is on the benefits of how this solution is helping regulators like BNR. So like I mentioned earlier, because BNR pushed all the commercial banks, there's an improvement, overall data quality improvement for the entire country. The key indicator tracking is giving them the real-time data on whether any policy change which they are making, how is it panning out in the economy? So they can actually test very quickly and see the results of any policy change. And if any adjustments are required to that policy, even that can be done very quickly, looking at this data, and which are the kind of groups which are being excluded from the financial industry, so they can see analytics by gender, age, location, and ensure that these people are also included as part of their goal to achieve 100% financial inclusion. Some of the data insights which come in as a result, Joanne gave some examples from Ghana. Similarly, in Rwanda, they were able to also see institution level bias against, and because there was a gender gap in terms of loan applications, etc. So not only looking at male versus female, but they also saw that certain financial institutions, the ratio was fine, but in some institutions, there was a big gap. So when they deep down and work with those financial institutions, they realized that the people who were approving those loans, there was a bias, and they helped them and worked with them to ensure those are removed to reach their overall goals. This has also helped to reduce the burden on the regulated entities towards compliance efforts and costs. And the regulators can now deploy their resources for supervision more efficiently and lead to overall better decision-making across the entire country. Thank you very much. Paloma, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shukirat. So now let me give the floor to Edouard, who's going to talk also about how technologies enable data-driven decision-making. And thank you. Over to you, Edouard.
Thank you, Paloma. And thank you for my fellow panelists. My name is Edouard Docteur. I am the Chief Delivery Officer for Global Voice Group. And today I will talk to you a bit about what we do at Global Voice Group and how our platforms are able to help governance within the African sub-Saharan region. Next slide, please. So who are we at GVG? GVG is a pioneer at data-driven technology, as we were the first to implement such platform as early as 2005. We strongly believe at GVG that government require data to be able to make policies, to be able to structure and guide the future of their country. From the beginning, GVG has kept it very focused at being a partner to government, being a technological provider by leveraging the latest technologies to making sure that government is having data, access to actionable data. And one key question that we love to answer is, what is actionable data? What format does that take? How do we make sure that we're able to collect that information in an efficient way and integrate it into what regulatory bodies are doing to making sure that their job become faster, more efficient, and of course, brings additional benefits to the country as a whole. Some of our clients that we've been working with over the last 25 years are Ghana, NCA from Ghana, GRA from Ghana. We've also been working with Wura from Rwanda. We also have a successful relationship and project with Wura and Rwanda. And of course, RPCA and Congo, which I will be using a case of our partnership with Congo Brazzaville and RPCA to explain some of our success stories in the continent. Of course, we also been working with exclusively with government and regulatory bodies. And we believe that our technology has been able to define some of the key success decisions that this government has been able to implement over the last few years. Next slide, please. Now, what is our big data approach? We strongly believe at GVG that we must accompany government in their road to digitalization. It means that our product should be able to be complementary to what they're doing. And our first key aspect that we believe is important is to become non-intrusive in the type of data that we are collecting. Today, Over the last 25 years, we have worked at telecom regulators. We've worked with central bank. We are able to collect non-intrusively real-time data to bring it to the government and making sure that these regulatory bodies and government, they're able to use that data for their decision-making. Another really important aspect is how do we make sure that our platform that we deliver to them are compliant to the regulation. We basically implement a platform that represents the existing regulation on the ground. This is why it's extremely important for government to establish a regulatory framework to enable the service provider like ourselves to collect the right data for them. Because again, what is the right data? It all depends on who you're working with, who is your client. And today, if we're talking about central bank, we understand that having access to remitted information is extremely important to them. We believe that in the mobile money sector, for example, there is a lot of remittances information that is circulating into that ecosystem. How do we make sure that the central banks are having access to this data and trusting the data they're getting, and at the same time ensuring that they're able to use that data for their own benefits? So this is the vision of GVG. Be non-intrusive into the sector, working to making sure that we collect raw and real-time to real mean-time data, and ensuring that our system is scalable, adaptable to the ecosystem. This is the reason why before we deploy our platforms, we work hand-to-hand with our clients. We understand what their needs are, and we go on site and we conduct what we would call a survey to really see how can we develop and customize a platform that is fitted for that particular scenario, which will explain how we get to be scalable, how we get to be continuously upgrade our technology to keeping up to the latest fintech technology that is been deploying over time. Next slide, please. So what is the impact of our platform of data-driven approach to compliance and transparency? Today, making sure that regulatory bodies are able to reinforce compliance while remain transparent in what they're doing is extremely important. And to do that, we must provide systems that are able to assess, analyze the data that they're getting and making sure that it is presented to them in a way that is relevant to what they are doing. We believe that combining the analytic capacities that GVG is having in their product with the work that these organizations are doing is what is the most relevant for the industries. And one of the key results that we have seen is whenever that we improve transparency in the ecosystem, especially on the digital finance, we also see an increase in trust with the users of this ecosystem. We will see in the case of Congo, whereby because the government is promoting the usage of mobile money, we are seeing how these an increase of users on how they're using the platform to make more transactions over time. Another very key relevant aspect that is important for us to discuss is visibility over the sector. The more visibility that regulatory bodies are having on the sector, the better it is for them to plan future action, to revise their existing policy, to making sure that they provide the framework for tech supplier like us to come into the country and assist them in doing what they are planning and achieving their objective. And next slide, please. So again, our data-driven approach is also focusing on reconciling financial inclusion with the data integrity. What do we mean by that? Today, when we look at mobile money ecosystem, for example, we understand there's so much risk associated with these transactions. Who is behind the transactions that are happening in the ecosystem? How is this ecosystem is protected against money laundering activities? How is this ecosystem protected against terrorist financing? These are very real risks that is happening in this ecosystem. And today, with the platforms such as the SocTech platform that GVG is providing, we are able to making sure that government are having a full visibility on these transactions. Every transaction that occurs on this platform, on this mobile money platform, for example, are captured, they are analyzed, they are assessed, and they are reported to the government in real time. And this is a very powerful tool for accompanying our government and their road to digitalization and protecting as well the customer within those ecosystems. Next slide, please. So for the case study in Congo, we were presented with 3 key problems, which was how can the government drive a transition toward a cashless economy while making sure that the ecosystem and mobile money is safe for every user, and of course, making sure that they remain compliant to existing regulators and fiscal obligation. So the objectives were very clear for us as Rected supplier. We believe that we needed to bring a system that is able to optimize mobile money adoption. We believe that we needed to help them ensure and collect timely information, because the faster information arrive at regulatory bodies and the more accurate that this information is, the better that government can really plan their next move and remain ahead of the technology and ahead of their time, especially when you have quality of service indicators, when you have key parameters related to taxations that you need to make sure that you're ready to collect. Of course, fight against potential scam and fraud that may be happening on the financial ecosystem is extremely important as an objective. And of course, how can we help government generate additional revenue? Because at the end of the day, what is important is being able to use data to build around a particular roadmap that government usually make clear in their yearly objective. So today, our platform, when we developed the platform and deployed the platform in Congo in 2019, we were able to making sure that every mobile money transaction that happened in the ecosystem of Congo is captured in raw format in real time, processed and reported in near real time to the government entities. And all of the transaction flows are categorized, processed, and reported to making sure that they understand payments methodologies that are used in the sector. And we have a focus on cash out transaction, because cash out transaction at the fiscal law of Congo impose a particular taxation on cash out transaction. And government are able to monitor and conduct revenue assurance on that particular aspect on some transaction within the ecosystem. And we have seen over the years that we have thousands of, tens of millions of dollars, USD, that is transiting from Congo toward other countries. This is cross-border remittances that is happening in this ecosystem. And this is extremely important. How does government remain aware of those type of transactions occurring within their ecosystem? And the banking system, this is straightforward. The SWIFT system is allowing central bank to monitor all of these transfer of money that is occurring within the cross borders. But within the mobile money ecosystem, what is the level of visibility those central banks are having to these type of transaction? With GVG solution, we believe that we can show those level of granularity and those details on these transactions. In the case of Congo, we can see that since if we take the last year, May 2022 to this year, there's an increase of 9.6% on the number of active users. This is because the regulatory framework that was put together helped drive the adoption of cashless society, because some of the payment for utility bills are mandated to go through mobile money. And we also see an increase of volume of transaction, also driven within that regulatory framework, by this regulatory framework. But again, the government is having direct access to this data, and they're using this data to build their future plans. So I think we can stop here and open the floor to some questions. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Edward, Joan, Sukhirat, Darak. So now we have time, so have 10 minutes, 10 solid minutes to respond to the questions. So I'm gonna give some time to my team to look over the question you'll be putting into the chat and give you some time, you audience, to put your questions into the Q&A chat. So let me start with my question. So during the consultation with the central banks that the UNCDF have been doing and with the authorities, many central banks mention the trade-off between the availability of detailed transaction granular level remittances payments data and the cost to access it. So what is your take on that? Maybe gonna start. Joan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges in the project that I mentioned was when the Bank of Ghana started to look for some of this more granular data, many of the banks didn't have it necessarily. So they didn't have the data required in that format. So I think there is maybe an initial setup cost that's required to collect more granular data, to get that. In some cases, banks have to go back to their clients, etc., to get more data. But I think what we've seen over the implementation of the project is that the benefit is far outweighs the initial setup cost. So yeah, I mean, I think there definitely is a change required. But typically, what we see actually working with lots of different central banks is that in many jurisdictions where maybe there isn't so much of a legacy of systems in place, it can actually be easier maybe to leapfrog directly from that kind of maybe 1G or more manual way of doing things directly into a more automated push or pull of data. So there is a setup cost. I think there are lots and lots of very innovative firms in the RegTech space in many countries, and they're well able to help the financial institutions with maybe the acquisition of the data and providing that data to central banks. So yeah, my view would be that there is an initial setup cost, but it is the benefits far outweigh any initial cost.
Thank you, Joan.
I'd like to add to that. Thank you so much, Joan. What I would like to add is that it also depends about the vision of the central bank, because the reality is it is extremely important to be able to have a same level of visibility over all of the sector that is financial sector, digital financial sector, the same way that they have it with the banking system. This level of visibility is there for a reason. It is there to protect the end users. It is there to protect the ecosystem. It is also there to allow central bank to make provision of how to see how the economy is actually building in the country. So the initial setup costs that Joan mentioned, I believe that it's a stepping stone toward achieving a particular goal and a particular objective. And I believe that this cost is something that is worthwhile, because the benefit outweigh these costs, considering the level of data and the level of information that will be provided to these entities for decision making at the end.
Paloma, there's just one point I'd like to add, because this is a very interesting question you've raised. I think what Edward said, I totally agree with Edward, that the bigger vision and picture has to be there first to drive a policy. The blueprint has to be there, and the granular data and getting these insights is one part of that overall picture. It's not an end in itself, but once you get those analytics, the question is, what do you do with it, right? So if there's a force behind it, driving it in a certain direction, then it's absolutely worth it. But if nobody is going to do anything about it, then yes, it's not as fruitful an exercise. Number two, since we are working with a number of regulators, they are also coming up with very innovative ways in which they are finding a way not to fund the entire project themselves, but they are doing it in a unique model where they are charging each institution a certain fee, and in return, they would give them like a marketplace of analytics, which is beneficial for that financial institution as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. And And I think the third thing I'd like to say from personal experience to regulators is that even regulators need to be a little more innovative, take an innovative approach rather than going with the traditional tried and tested method. If Rwanda had gone with the tried and tested method, trust me, we wouldn't have done this project for them. They tried something totally new. It had not been done before, the pull-based data collection back in 2017. So they tried something new, they took a calculated risk, and it worked. So I think you've got to have the bit of innovation as well and take some calculated risks, and you can manage your costs. And in the end, it's absolutely worth it then.
Thank you, Sogera. Thank you. Let me also look at the questions, but also I have another question now that having the benefit of your expertise. Also, usually countries would like to work together. In Africa, there are so many regional economic communities, so the countries are trying to together is they are stronger. Often technology innovation thrives at a very small scale, but needs help with scalability. So based on your experience, what is required in order to make technology scalable and to become a mainstream? This is kind of something that also we are trying to work with the countries. So maybe who wants to start? I don't know.
Yeah, I might just take it. I mean, I think you know, the technology we're using today is scalable from a technical performance scalability. We're using sort of cloud native technologies. They don't have to be in the cloud, but they have elastic scalability, etc. But I think in terms of countries working together to make a solution or make their solutions more scalable, I think there is, you know, we do see in some jurisdictions a lot more collaboration between regulators and even between regulators and industry. And I think that has to come from the top. And what I mean by that is I think where you have a regional body, for example, who can coordinate amongst multiple central banks, I think that really helps. So where we've seen that type of collaboration and scalability and maybe sharing of technology work well is where there is a mandate from, you know, if you like, a higher power, if you like, or a higher a group that will help with that. I think individually, unless you have that kind of mandate, it can be difficult sometimes to get that kind of collaboration and sort of sharing of technology for scalability between central banks.
Joanne, you raise a very, very valid point. From my experience the last 14 years, what I've seen that is extremely beneficial to consider in those cases is how can we make sure that the platform that you're providing to this particular client is designed for the ecosystem itself? What is the ecosystem that you're trying to monitor? What is it that you're trying to do? And how can you prepare your platform for the future of that ecosystem? This is why we at GVG, we believe in a partnership whereby the client, whenever that we are coming into a particular project, we discuss what the future of that particular ecosystem may look like. We work with all of the stakeholders that is around this ecosystem. For example, in the case of Ghana, we are working with the telecom regulator. We're also working with the tax authority. We meet with them in such a way to understand what they foresee in their in the country in the near future, and we try to build platforms that is going to be quick, adaptive to that particular future. Of course, Joanne mentioned that using the latest technology should be a basic by now, making sure that we continue to upgrade our platform to catch up to what's happening, and also simplifying the way that you're collecting the data that you're getting. So by moving with API technology, for example, you're opening up more ways of collecting real-time data with different entities that may be entering the fintech sector at any given moment. So that is very important to making sure that your platform also is adaptable. Some particular sectors, you may be able to collect via API, others you need to go directly to their core platforms. So you need to be a bit flexible as well in how you define your platform. And of course, regulation within the region is extremely important. How can you synchronize the overall effort within that ecosystem to boost result for everyone. That is extremely important as well.
So, Kirat, anything you would like to add, maybe?
I think the only thing, I think both Joanne and Edward had covered most of it. The only thing I'd like to add is I think we're pretty fortunate to live in a time when technology is, at its innovation is at its, highest we have ever seen. The technology which is available today makes some things possible which were unthinkable 10 years back. I've lost count of, it used to be megabytes, gigabytes, petabytes. I don't know what is it now, the latest one. But the processing of data in the speed which is possible now was not possible earlier. So, and to be able to, as a supervisor, we talk to regulators and most of them talk about having a command center where they're getting real-time data of all the financial institutions to be able to track what's going on in the country, what's the liquidity position of each institution, to be able to help them, assist them, monitor them. This was not thinkable even 10 years back. So we are very excited that with the convergence of technology solution providers like ourselves and the technology which is available, hardware, infrastructure, and the connectivity, because I've been traveling to Africa and Asia Pacific for last 20 years, the connectivity has improved so much now. You go to any country, the internet connectivity, it was not possible earlier to even give solutions which would be not working there. So I think it's very exciting time as far as I see for Subtech and some of the solutions we can provide.
Okay, so let's meet an agreement in 10 years. We do this webinar again and we'll see how is that going. So I would love to do that. So, I don't want to, time is up. I just wanted to thank you. We have 100 participants. Thank you so much for being with us. And finally, I would like to thank you, Sukirat, Garrett, Edward, John. You've been, fantastic insight. Thank you so much. Hopefully this is really helpful. We will make sure to share the recording with all the participants, and also you have my email. I really love this community of practice. So I'm trying to improve remittances for the benefit of countries, households, and individuals. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paloma.
Thanks, Paloma.
Thanks, Edward.
Good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.